We're back on the Morgan Streetman Show. We like to go out there, but the world is out there. So we'll just hit on a couple different crazy stories that we've seen that we need to catch up on, Morgan.
Well, the whole shows lately have just been out there. So we don't even need a separate segment anymore. It's the whole darn show. And we've got, we're talking about some of this social molding, as some people have referred to it, this cancel culture, where if you engage in wrong think, you say or believe the wrong thing, really it's believe the wrong thing, and heaven forbid you actually speak it. You speak the truth about what you believe, because then they'll try to destroy your life. And we're seeing this top to bottom. We're seeing examples made of President Trump. He's been banned from all of his social media, now has no real way to communicate with the American people other than trying to go through the approved channels. And as we've already seen through the approved channels, quote unquote, ABC, NBC, CBS, the cable news channels, they will not let him speak. They will control the narrative. They'll interrupt him. They'll correct him, quote unquote, on air. He has no way to speak directly to the people. That's what Twitter was for him, but now he's been banned from that. There are a couple of other stories on this kind of context. I mean, there's a pro-Trump rocker named Ariel Pink. That's a pseudonym of his also, but Ariel Pink, I think his real name's Ariel Rosenberg. Anyway, his label dropped him because he attended the Stop the Steal rally in D.C. So you've got this kind of, if you think the wrong way, if you speak the wrong way, if you're seen at the wrong places, you're going to be canceled. And we've got Democrats are talking about drafting legislation now for the 117th Congress that was just begun last week. They're going to be drafting legislation to actually criminalize the attendance at Trump rallies. But it's not going to stop with the attendance at Trump rallies. It's then going to be the attendance at rallies who have certain, beliefs or rallies for certain issues. And that's going to be labeled as domestic terrorism. And all this based on what happened at the Capitol, supposedly catching everybody by surprise. And again, I just want you to think about this. When incidents happen, I'm often saying, okay, there's a Latin phrase, cui bono, who benefits from this? And look at the change in the narrative. Look at the assumption of power by big tech, by social media, and look at the criminalization of the patriot movement, of people who think a certain way, of the right. And who's benefiting from this, staged invasion of the U.S. Capitol? Who's benefiting from it? The narrative's totally shifted. Things are being done, policies are being put in place, and it seems pretty obvious who's benefiting from it.
I have a friend who is a Republican and a never Trumper, and she was particularly happy when Trump was not reelected and said, I'm glad because now I can fight for my beliefs, which are against socialism, and I am not lumped into, oh, you love Trump and therefore you're a bad person because you love him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Like, to your point, just because he's out of the picture, there's going to be another way to stifle those beliefs.
Of course. Yeah. It's just like, she's just like, I just can't wait to the next election and then we could vote him out, and it's like, yeah, okay. People keep saying that and I keep hearing that. And I'm just thinking, this just doesn't, there's something really wrong here. You don't seem to get the fact that the votes weren't counted fairly this time. And you think next time's not going to be a whole lot worse. It just so happens you see all this fraud and bam, Biden just barely edges Trump out, just barely. Same thing happened in Georgia. Those two radical Senate candidates for the Democrats, Warnock and Ossoff. Absolutely radical candidates who we're talking about Georgia. Come on. You really think those people won the vote in Georgia? Kind of hard to believe. Maybe they did, right? But kind of hard to believe, just kind of using your common sense to believe that they could have won the vote in Georgia. But no, they just barely edged out those two Republicans in what has for a long time been a traditionally Republican state. Even during the Obama years, it was a Republican state. So anyway, you just have to question this stuff. And we've got this cancel culture where the left can say anything they want. There's somebody who is a former senior policy analyst at the National Institutes of Health who has repeatedly tweeted that sitting United States Senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, should be skinned alive for his role in challenging the Electoral College votes. They didn't even, try to understand this. The challenge wasn't even successful. But that's not the point. It's not good enough for these radicals just to beat you, just to win. They've got to break your will. They can't just defeat you. Okay, we won the day. Now our guy, Joe Biden, which is really Kamala Harris, is going to be president. Okay, so now we're happy because we won. And you know what? That can be good enough. And now we can be big sports, good sports about it. Shake your hand at the end of the game because you know what? We won. And we don't have to take your face and shove it, put it down in it. We don't have to make the point to your face. But no, that's not good enough for these people. They want to destroy you and remove you. And it's not to get rid of you so much as it is to make a public example out of you so that people stop thinking and believing the wrong thing. They stop thinking and believing in ways that, give you any chance to turn things around. Give your friend who's a never-Trumper but who hates socialism any chance to ever defeat socialism. Not going to happen because they're going to break your will unless you fight back against them. And, we have to stand up for what we believe in. We have to fight back against this effort at changing the way that we think. But we're a little bit behind the curve here. They're way far ahead of us all of a sudden. They're going to control all of the branches of government. Don't think that we won't see. Expect to see a push for D.C. statehood and for Puerto Rico statehood. Why? Well, because then you add senators to the Senate. And if those two territories are then made states, then what you're going to have is they're always going to send two liberal, radical senators. It's not going to be a close election ever in D.C. or Puerto Rico. These places are going to send Democrats, and they're not even going to just be Democrats anymore. They're going to be these radical Democrats, which is the kind of the new Democrat that we're seeing, which is the Kamala Harris, which is the Raphael Warnock, which is the John Ossoff, those two senators from Georgia. They're socialists. They're communists. They're radicals. And that's what we're going to see from places like D.C. and Puerto Rico if they're given statehood. And I would say expect that to be coming. And you know what else you need to expect? Expect them to pack the Supreme Court, right? Because they said they were going to do that.
Should we move to Costa Rica?
There's nowhere. This is what Maximo Alvarez said at the Republican National Convention. There is nowhere else. There's nowhere else to go. This was it. This is the place that we had to make our stand. And unfortunately, too many people didn't want to make the stand, didn't look into the election enough. Too many people on our own side, on the side of freedom, on the right, who believe in conservative values, too many people just said, oh, there's nothing to see here. If you're talking about election fraud, you're just a fool. And, it's very sad because those are some of the people who, if they could have just taken the time to look into some of the data, look at the evidence that exists, and try to formulate their own conclusions, and you know what? Think for themselves. Maybe they could have been on our side, and maybe we could have mounted a bigger fight, and maybe we could have won. But that didn't happen. We're really in for it, folks. I'm Morgan Streetman, and that's the way I see it. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.